Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, we begin Hilchos Milah, laws of circumcision, which is the final and sixth of the halachas in the Sefer Hava Book of Love, which mitzvah achas. There's one positive commandment here, and that is lomel hazacharim, to circumcise the males, the men, the boys, b'yom shmini, on the 8th day. Uber mitzvah, an explanation of this mitzvah is b'prakim eila, are in these chapters, which there are 3 prakim. The first one, this parak discusses regarding the circumcision, the bris of the milah, the covenant of the circumcision and its time. And the last 2 prakim discuss regarding the actual action of the circumcision and its blessings. And with that, we begin Parak Rishon, the first chapter, which is the obligation of circumcision and its time. As Rambam begins halacha af regarding those who are obligated in circumcision. Milah, circumcision, mitzvah to say is a positive commandment, shechayav nalakaris, which one is liable if he does not perform it, fulfill it, the punishment of karis, which is being cut off. Shlomo says in the pasuk in Bereshis v'adil zachar, and any male that's uncircumcised, ashaloyimel, as pesar los, they will not cut off the skin of the foreskin, and that soul will be cut off from its people. And there's a mitzvah on the father to circumcise the son, and on the master to circumcise his slaves. So there's 2 types. There's yilid bayis, that which is born to his mother, which is a non-Jewish maidservant, and she becomes pregnant, gives birth while in the possession of the Jewish owner. And the mikis kasef, and there's that of the baby or any slave that's purchased from the Gentiles. Either one of those slaves, he has the obligation to circumcise. Now, the father violates ha'adain, or the master, and doesn't circumcise them. Bitzel mitzvah to say, he has nullified a positive commandment, but he's not going to be chayav kares because the liability of kares, of dying at a young age, being cut off one's soul, is only in the one who's uncircumcised himself. Now, now, the courts are obligated to circumcise that son or the slave in his time. That is, even if the father or the master is not doing it. And they shouldn't leave. There should be an uncircumcised amongst the Jewish people and not in their slaves. Halacha beis. Now, however, the courts, let's say, or whoever it is, cannot circumcise the son of a man without his consent, without his awareness, because since the mitzvah is incumbent upon the father, it's forbidden to snatch away his mitzvah. Only if he violates, and he's holding back from circumcising, then the court circumcise him against the will of the father or the master. Now, what happens if what happens if it was alluded from the courts because he hid the fact, and they didn't circumcise him? So when this boy becomes an adult, he has obligation to circumcise himself. Now, every single day that he violates this since he became an adult and he doesn't circumcise himself, he's nullifying a positive commandment. But he's not going to be liable for chorus. Why not? Until he dies, and then his soul will be cut off from the life of the world to come, although generally chorus means dying at a young age. Here, as long as he's alive, he's not really chayav chorus because he could still remedy the situation and to circumcise and perform the mitzvah. It's only when he finally dies, and he was deliberately uncircumcised, then he gets the other element of chorus, which is his soul being cut off from olam haba. Halacha gimel, regarding those who are obligated in the circumcision. So, echad eved shenoiled b'shus Yisrael, whether it's a slave that was born in the possession of the Jewish person, which is called yilid bayis, that which is born in the house, or echad eved whether it's a slave that was purchased from the Gentiles, which is called miknas kesef, purchased with one's monies. Either way, the master has to circumcise those slaves. Ella, but the difference is yilid bayis, that which is born to the maidservant in the Jewish possession, nimal lishmoina, gets circumcised on day 8. Or miknas kesef, but that which is purchased with money, nimul b'yom shel nilkach, will be circumcised on the day that he's bought. Even if the baby's bought as a slave, the day he's born, nimul b'yom, he gets circumcised on that day. The reason for that is because there's 2 different psukim. One says uven shmeinas yom yimul lochem kol zachar yilid bayis miknas kesef. Another pasuk says himel yimul yilid beischo miknas kaspacha, and it doesn't say over there regarding day 8. So the resolution is that anything that's similar to the Jewish people, meaning that's born in a Jewish house, is going to get circumcised on day 8, because that's what the pasuk says about the lochem. On the other hand, any slave which is purchased by the master after he's born is not considered like a Jew, and therefore you won't say uben shmoinis yimel lochem. Rather, that will be himel yimel, which is the day that you buy him, he's going to be circumcised. Now, however, it says around the halacha dal yesh miknas kesef shemin nimel lishmoina. You could have a situation where the slave that is bought with money will be circumcised day 8, not the day you buy him, let's say, even as a day-old baby. And at the same time, Yeshilid bias, there could be certain slaves which are born in the Jewish house, Shinim actually will be circumcised the day that he's born. Meaning, contrary to the general ideas we just said. So, Ketzat, how so? So these are unique situations. Lakach shivcha, if someone purchases a maidservant, v'lakach ubara ima, and he purchased the fetus with her, meaning she was pregnant when the Jewish owner was buying this maidservant, v'yolda, and then she gave birth in the Jew's possession, hareza nima lishmeina. So then that baby's going to be circumcised on day 8, because since he's being born in the possession of a Jew, at a time when his mother's also was purchased by the Jewish owner, so it's similar to lachem, and therefore it would be uven shmeinas yima lochem kol zachar. And the chiddush, and the added chiddush over here is, and even if he purchased the fetus on its own, and the fetus itself is actually purchased from money, meaning to say, a big chiddush, says the Rambam. Even if in the beginning he only purchased the fetus and not the mother, but in the interim he went and he changed his mind, he purchased the mother also before the baby was born, so the baby's not going to be qualified, although technically it was. It's not going to be qualified as miknas kesef, it's going to be qualified as yilid bayis and be circumcised on day 8, because ultimately the mother was acquired before his birth, and ultimately his birth is like a yilid bayis one, which is ultimately the mother was purchased before the baby was born. So nima l'shmeina, in this case, the baby will be circumcised on day 8. Halacha hey, lakach shivcha lu'ubereha. Let's say he purchased a maidservant for its fetus. In other words, he has no portion in the actual body of the mother, only in the babies that she's going to have. So that's not similar to lachem. So let's say he purchased the maidservant, but on the condition that he's not going to have her immersed for the purposes of being considered like a slave of a Jewish person, which has the halachas, somewhat a quasi-state of Jewishness. So in this case, although the baby's being born, this slave baby's being born in his possession, so maybe you would have thought it would be qualified like Yilid Bayis, which is circumcised on day 8. No, the baby's going to be circumcised on the day that it's born. Because this baby that's born, it's as if it was purchased just for the money, meaning as if it was purchased itself. It's like as if today, when the baby is born, as if today he was acquired. Because the mother's not really included in the halachas of the maidservant of a Jew. So that the baby should be considered as if it was born in the house of a Jew. Because a Yilid Bayis is only if the baby slave was born in the possession of a Jew, because the mother was acquired by the Jew before the birth. But in this case, the mother was not acquired, or even it was, but not in the halachas of a shivcha. Now, if the mother immersed achar sheyolda, after the baby gave birth, hareza nima l'shmeina. So it's going to have the circumcision on day 8. Meaning this is going on the last halacha. We're going to someone who purchased a shivcha on the intent of not to have her taivel in the mikveh, where then it helps the tefillah after the birth of the baby to make it like, well, now retroactively it's like a lid bias to actually have the circumcision on day 8, because ultimately since the tefillah was done, it nullifies the conditions that were initially made, and it's as if he acquired the mother without any conditions. So it would be considered like a lid bias in that way. In contrast of, let's say he bought a shivcha only l'ubreha, then even if he ultimately immerses the mother for the purposes of abdus after the baby was born, it's not going to be effective, because ultimately when the baby was born, the mother wasn't even acquired by the master, so therefore that would be considered like miknas kesev, and therefore then the baby would be circumcised on the day he was born. But those are exceptions to the rules of what we mentioned, that of miknas kesev versus that of yilid bayis. Halacha vav. Lakach eved gadol magam. Let's say he purchases an adult slave from the Gentiles. And there's a halacha to circumcise the slave. But the slave doesn't want to be circumcised. So you attempt to get him on board for a period of 12 months. Yes, I can, once it's already more than that, not maintain the slave while he's uncircumcised. Then you have to go back and resell him to the Gentiles. Now, if he had stipulated with him from the beginning, meaning when he was still by his Gentile master, so he's not going to circumcise him. Okay, then you're allowed to hold on to him even while he's uncircumcised. As long as he accepts upon himself the 7 no-hide laws, the Yikagir Teshuvah will have the halacha like a resident convert, which is halacha of a non-Jew who fulfills the 7 mitzvahs b'nei noich. But if he does not accept upon himself even the 7 no-hide mitzvahs, then he has to be killed right away. And one cannot accept a ger teishav only in the time when the halachas of Yibel apply, not now when we don't have all the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael. Halacha Zayin, Ger shenichnas l'kal Yisrael, a convert who enters into the community of the Jewish people, chayiv milah tchila. He has to first circumcise himself. Now, v'imol k'shayi goy, if he circumcised himself when he was a Gentile, meaning not for the purposes of conversion, rather like the Arabs do, tzarich lahata min dam bris b'yim shenisgar. Then he has to draw a droplet of blood of the covenant from the place of the circumcision, b'yim shenisgar, on the day that he converts. So too, when a baby is born circumcised, he doesn't have the foreskin, you have to draw some of the blood of the covenant on the 8th day. Androgynous, which this is a baby that's born, he has a male organ like a male. The nakvas can cave, and his genitalia is also, he has the same thing of what a female has. You have to circumcise the male organ on the 8th day. And so too, a baby is born from cesarean through the abdominal wall, meaning the chiddush in this is even though the mother does not have a tumas leida, because that's only if it's a vaginal birth, we don't say, then you're not going to have the halacha of circumcising on day 8, because there is an opinion, which actually we'll say in a moment we will go stringent like, but it says in the pasuk, the mother is impure for 7 days, and then it says on the 8th day you circumcise. Only if there's Tumah Shabbos Yom, then you have a b'yom shmini yimel. No, it's not true. Even if the baby's not born through a vaginal birth and there won't be tumas leida, still, in that case, and so too, if someone has 2 foreskins, you circumcise both of them on the 8th day. Again, even though these cases, meal will not be Deicha Shabbos, but it has the halacha of circumcising on day 8. Halacha Ches, which takes us to this halacha of the timing of the milah. The circumcision is always only done during the daytime, after at least the sun has come up. Whether it's on the 8th day, Shuzman, which is the designated time for milah, whether you're not doing it on the designated time, which is from day 9 and onwards, it always has to be during the daytime. Like it says in the pasuk, and on the 8th day, which tells us during the daytime and not at nighttime. So therefore, if someone circumcised already from the break of dawn, kosher, it's going to be valid, because from halacha, from Alisa Shachar is already considered daytime, it's just that we're not so proficient, so therefore we initially wait for netzachama, for what we call halachic sunrise. And really the whole day is valid for circumcision. Even so, it's a mitzvah to do it earlier in the beginning of the day. Because those who are diligent, they go and do the mitzvahs as early as possible, which is first thing in the morning. Halacha Tes, regarding the circumcision that overrides the prohibitions of Shabbos and Yom Tov. Milah Bismana, if you have a circumcision on its designated time, which on day 8, like we said, Shabbos, it pushes away the violations that are going to be done for the Bris Milah on Shabbos. But for Shlib Bismana, if it's not on its designated time, in the does not override Leis Shabbos, was Yom Tov, not the prohibition doing Malacha, not on Shabbos, not on Yom Tov. Now, Obein Bisman, Obein Shlib Bisman, whether it's day 8 or whether it's not day 8, it will override the prohibition of Tsaras. Ketzat Hasa, meaning Shemhoya by Heres Ba'ir Ha'arlo. If someone had a spot of a Tsaras, a nega, a type of a leprosy on the skin of the foreskin, which there's a prohibition in the Torah to cut that off the skin, you will cut it off with the foreskin. Because even though cutting off a nega of tzras is a negative prohibition in the Torah, the positive commandment of doing circumcision overrides the prohibition of not cutting off the nega of tzras. Just like the circumcision of one's sons overrides the prohibition of Shabbos, so too the circumcising of one's slave, which if it's in that category when it's supposed to be circumcised on day 8, is Deiches Shabbos overrides the Shabbos, if day 8 falls out on Shabbos. Except for the baby that's born in the household, where the mother did not immerse for the purposes of Geras, until the baby was born, where although we described that the baby will be circumcised on day 8, the Shabbos is not going to push away the Shabbos. The reason for that is because it's actually machlokes in the Gemara on Shabbos of Kov Lamed Hey. If the baby there in that case gets circumcised on day 8 or on day 1. Now, since it wasn't defined who the halacha is like, we go stringently out of doubt both ways. That is, we're not going to circumcise the baby before day 8, because maybe the halacha is like the one who says it gets circumcised day 8. At the same time, it cannot be Mechal Shabbos out of doubt, because maybe the halacha is like the one who holds that it gets circumcised day 1, and therefore there would be Milah Shel Bezmana, which cannot be Deicha Shabbos, therefore it's going to be on Sunday, which will be day 9 of the birth. A baby that's born when he's circumcised, means born circumcised already, or a baby that's born in the day 8th from the pregnancy, which is kodim shetigome b'riyasa, before his creation has been completed, where because he's not full term, shukanevel, where he's like a stillborn, he's not going to live, or another case v'yetze which is, as we mentioned, when the baby is born through cesarean, which through the abdominal wall, where they do a surgery and they open up the stomach and take out the baby that way, where the mother does not have tumas laid over there, and we explained this previously, vandrogenes, or if it has both male and female genital organs, if someone has two foreskins, so these situations ain't deichen the Shabbos. So we said, although those cases you'll do on day 8, but they will not override the Shabbos. And the reason for this is because these are all situations of doubt. When a baby's born circumcised, we're not sure, maybe there is foreskin here, but it's just pressed and it requires a circumcision. Maybe there's no foreskin, does not require Mila. So the Androgenes, we're not sure if he's qualified as a Zachar or a Nekeva. And the Torah says only Arla Sai, a definite Arla is Deicha Shabbos and not a Safek. Because Arla Sai sounds like this one and not something else, is excluding something else. Or someone has two foreskins, it's a suffix, which one is the Arla and the mitzvahs on day 8 and which one's not, and would not be included, and would not be Deicha Shabbos Mitzvah. So to a baby born in the 8th month, the Mila is not a mitzvah because the baby's like a child, and it's forbidden to even move him on Shabbos. And cesarean is a suffix if it's included in being circumcised in day 8, because the halacha might be like the one who says that if the mother does not have the tumas leida, which is when the baby is not born through the vaginal canal, there's no halacha of circumcising on the day 8. So they will go stringently. It'll be circumcision on day 8, but it won't be deicha Shabbos. So in all these cases, rather they can be circumcised the next day on Sunday, which will be day 9 from their birth. Someone's born by twilight, which is the time period from when the sun is already set before 3 medium-sized stars has come out, which is called always ben hashmashes, which is safek bayim, safek balayla. Now it's not sure if that's part of the day or part of the nighttime. So minyan alayla, we're going to have to count because you can't do it before day 8. You could do b'diavad after day 8. So we're going to count for the nighttime. And then it's going to be circumcised on day 9, which might be the 8th day, depending if it was already nighttime or if it was already born before in the day, then it would be day 9. Now, let's say it's Friday night by twilight, then in a Deiches Shabbos, you can, even though we'll say you'll usually do it on 8/9 days later, which will be the same day of the nighttime, which would be Shabbos, you can't be Deiches Shabbos. Because rather the circumcision will be on Sunday, which is maybe day 9, maybe day 10, because she ain't Deiches Shabbos B'Safek. Since it's a suffix, so we'll go l'chum, we'll do it later, which is better than earlier than day 8. You can't do earlier, but not to be Mchal Shabbos, only the definite, and therefore you'll have to wait till Sunday, which maybe is day 10 already. If someone is born in the 8th month, so it depends. If his hair and his fingernails are all intact, Hadizavol is considered a complete child. Ben Shibahu, although we say in Talmudic literature that a baby born in the 8th month is non-viable, must have been, it's really, because in Talmudic literature there's 2 types of births, there's 9 months and 7 months, and those both are viable. Must have been a 7 month, El Shnashtar, it just there was a delay, although we think it's 8 months, it's really 7 months, it just delayed coming out. You're allowed to move that baby in Shabbos, in the Kevin is not like a stone, like a rock, and you could circumcise him on Shabbos. But if he's born to Sa'ori and his hair is inferior, and the fingernails are not complete the way they're usually born, most definitely this baby must be an 8-month baby. Really, he's only supposed to be born in the 9th month, but the baby came early before his completion has been done. Therefore it's considered like a stone. Now move him on Shabbos, and therefore you cannot circumcise him on Shabbos. Even so, but if he survives a period of 30 days, and then he's considered a viable child, then he's going to have the halacha like all other babies that are born for all halachas, because any baby that survives for 30 days in mankind, in an awful is not considered as a stillborn. Now, we should know that if someone's born in the 7th month of the pregnancy. So if he's born complete, it's considered an intact, viable child. You could circumcise him on Shabbos. Now, Savik ben Shemini, let's say you're not sure when exactly when did conception happen, not sure if it's 7 months or 8 months. Okay, so then you can circumcise him on Shabbos, al kapanim, whichever way you look at it, because im ben shivahu v'shalmu, if it's a 7-month pregnancy and delivery, and the baby's intact, so within the Shiyat Shabbos, like we said before, so the halacha dictates that it should override the halachas of Shabbos. And even in Ben Shemainu, and even if it's an 8-month baby, Hareza Shemo, when this guy's circumcising, it's just like cutting a piece of meat where there's no liability for making chabur on Shabbos. Lefish is a nafel imhu ben Shemainu, because that means to say, if this baby was born in the 8th month, so then he's a stillborn. It's like a dead person, where there's no liability for doing chavala on Shabbos, because that's only by a living person, which is like partial death. Now, here the baby's already dead. Now, although you're not allowed to move such a baby because they said it's like a stone, but that Isra of Muktzah is only rabbinic. And when there's a suffix of maybe you're performing a mitzvah, then the Rabbanan permitted that, unlike when it's a definite 8th month where there's no even suffix mitzvah, then you wouldn't be able to do the circumcision on Shabbos because of the Isra of moving Muktzah unnecessarily. Halakha Tezvav. If the fetus stuck its head out, chutz l'mei imoy, out of the mother's womb, bein hashmashos, by twilight of Friday night, although the entire baby only came out when it was already Friday night, you're not going to do the circumcision on day 8 on Shabbos, because we start counting the 8 days from when the baby's head already came out. Because once the head comes out, it's already like it's born. So it's like it was born Ben Hashmashos, Erev Shabbos, which we said is not Derech Shabbos, like we said in Halacha Yud Beis. Now, and whichever baby you're not going to override Shabbos for, in the Deches Yom Tov Rishon, it's not going to override the first day of Yom Tov either. But V'Deches Yom Tov Sheni, but it will override the second day of Yom Tov, which is only a suffix, and therefore would be more lenient. However, in the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, in the Deich, it's not going to override Lois Rishon, Lois Hashem, not the first day, not even the second day, because the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah are considered like one sanctity. It's like considered what's called Yom HaRichter, like one long day. Even there, it's Yisrael, they keep it, and therefore that's more severe. V'chein, and also, which some say the word v'chein seems difficult, because all the halachas that we mentioned in this halacha, they're all because of this reasoning the Rambam is quoting now of Milah Shlebezman is not Teicha Shabbos v'Yom Tov. So we always say b'chein. Rather, someone to say the word should be b'chol, which is what he means to say is that any situation where the circumcision of the baby is going to be performed not in its designated time. For example, if the baby was sick on the 8th day or some other mishap happened, they couldn't circumcise in the designated time, that still you're not going to do this in the Milah on Shabbos, then that would be any Milah Shlebezman, the circumcision not in its designated time, in the Deicha Eshnei Yom Tov Rosh Hashanah will not override Shabbos, and also, like we're saying, will not override the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Halakha Tezvav continues, what happens if the baby was sick? Chayla, if the baby's sick, ein mal noisei ad sheyavid. You don't do circumcision until he becomes healthy, because or else it could be dangerous to do the milah. Umain leme'ei sheyavid mechalya, and you start counting from when the moment the baby becomes healthy, where he comes out of his sickness, shiva yamim me'eis le'eis, 7 days, 24-hour periods of 7 days. And then you do the circumcision. Now, when we say you have to wait so long, if let's say it had a fever or creates b'chol, is there anything similar like an illness which is it takes over it's a global, it takes over the whole body. But let's say it's just that his eyes were hurting, which is only a sickness in one organ. So when his eyes open up and he's healed, then you can do the circumcision right away. If anything similar like that, you wouldn't have to wait 7 24-hour periods. If you have a baby on the 8th day that is very yellow, you don't do the circumcision until the blood falls into him, where he gets more the blood, and then he gets back the color like way a healthy baby has. Now, let's say he was too red, like as if they painted him. So you don't do the circumcision, because now that means to say all the blood there is between the skin and the flesh. If you can do the circumcision, all the blood's going to come out until the blood gets absorbed into the baby. And then he gets back his color like all other the babies, because this is an illness, whether it's too yellow or too red. But says the Rambam, you have to be very careful with these things, because else it can be dangerous. Now, Isha, a woman that circumcised her first son, and because of the circumcision, the baby died. Because it weakened the baby by doing the bris milah. So do they circumcise the second baby, and the baby died because of circumcision. And this is bim bala rishon, bim bala sheni, whether it's from a first husband, whether it's from a second husband. So the third baby, you're not going to do the bris milah in his designated time. Wait for him until he becomes older, and that he gets his strength and vigor. So to one does not do a circumcision only on the baby, a child that does not have any illness, because danger to one's life pushes away all obligations. And And says Rambam a svara. Said the circumcision you can do at a later point in time. But we can never bring back one soul from the Jewish people if the baby's going to die, and if we'd rather push that off than have the baby put it in a situation of danger.